Chapter 2. Michael. Mike Kelly stretched in his chair and gazed out the window to watch the ragtag group of volunteers straggling in uneven formation across the sun-baked Fort Leavenworth parade ground. Their uniforms were just as haphazard, and whatever the supply officer had come up with. Forage caps, dark blue jackets that didn't fit, light blue pants, many of them shoddy and cheap wool mixture that fell apart when it got wet. The men's shoes were an odd assortment of everything from brogans to boots, a wisp of hay tied in the left foot, a wisp of straw tied to the right. Sergeant Duncan, frustrated that many of the farm boys didn't know their right foot from their left foot, had changed the marching cadence from left right to hay foot, straw foot. In spite of the sergeant's efforts, one of the men, seeming to still be confused, tripped and stumbled over the man in front of him, and both of them fell on the ground. A purple-faced Sergeant Duncan ordered a halt. Mike chuckled. "Michael, keep your mind on your lessons." Mike turned to see his foster mother, Louise Taylor, who shook her head at him sadly. "Granted, you're a quick student, and you're both good at reading and mathematics, but you can't learn what I'm trying to teach you and stare out the window at the same time." A pretty young woman who sat across the table from him tried her best to look stern, but her eyes began to twinkle and the lines spread across her face. Mike grinned in response. "That's a sorry group of soldiers out there on that parade ground," he said. "I can't see how they'll march in battle if they can't stay upright." Louisa's smile vanished, and it was her eyes darkened with worry. "If only they didn't have to go to battle," she said. "If only our leaders could have solved the slavery problem peacefully, we wouldn't have to go to war." "Those rebs wouldn't listen to reason," Mike answered, and he broke off, but that wasn't what Mrs. Taylor wanted to hear. "Don't worry about the captain, ma'am," Mike said, and reached across the table to touch her hand. "He's a good, well-trained officer. He'll come through the war all right." Miss Taylor sighed and looked at him hopefully. "I thank God that the captain's life was spared during the skirmishes in Virginia. Big Bethel was a sad defeat for our Union Army, but the captain wrote that the men acquitted themselves as well as they could be expected since they were inexperienced volunteers." Mike shook his head angrily. "The Rebs shouldn't have won a single battle. I wish I'd been there. I'd have helped change the score." Mike could visualize himself in the thick of the fight, charging ahead through the smoke and gun blast. Some of the volunteers would turn and run, but Mike would have pressed forward no matter what. Louisa stretched across the table to tousle Mike's curly red hair. "It's a blessing to all of us that you aren't old enough to be called to fight. You should be safe here at the fort, and if our many prayers are answered, the war will be over soon." Mike squirmed uncomfortably in his chair. "Safe at the fort? Did they think he was a small child needing protection?" Louisa seemed to notice Mike's fidgeting. "I enclosed a letter to the captain in the letter I sent to him this morning." "Your letter and the letter I sent to the captain this morning. The best thing we can do is write to him often." Sitting a little straighter in her chair, Louisa picked up Mike's copybook. "Now then, let's go back to the lesson." But outside the front window came a louder stamp of boots and Sergeant Duncan's booming voice as he counted cadence, and Mike couldn't resist twisting his chair for one last look. "Oh, Mike," Louisa said with an exaggerated sigh. "All right, run outside and watch. We'll work on your lessons later." Mike nearly upended his chair in the hurry. "It's exciting, all the comings and goings and the bugles and drum beats and such." "War is not exciting," Louisa told him. "Ma'am, you sound like my sister Frances Mary." Mike teased, and he ran outside to the front porch of the officers' quarters, which faced the parade ground. Mike's heartbeat quickened as the flag bearer passed by, and he stood stiffly at attention. "Women don't understand these kind of things," he told himself. For a moment, Mike could see himself holding the Union flag high, leading the way as the mounted officers and foot soldiers followed him into battle. Cannonballs whizzed past and gunshots rang in his ear, but Mike would bravely press on. The dream of glory was short-lived. Mike was more than 3 years shy of an acceptance age of becoming a soldier. Sergeant Duncan had laughed when Mike had told him he wanted to enlist. "Don't try lying about your age, boy," the sergeant had said with a whoop of laughter. "I've got plenty of men willing to fight for the Union. There's been no talk of forming a little kiddies' army yet." He laughed again, and Mike was stalked away angry. If the sergeant only knew, Mike would make a better soldier than any of these raw recruits on the parade ground who were still trying to pick up their feet and put him down in the right places without causing disaster. Todd Blakely, Captain Blakely's son, appeared across the parade ground and waved at Mike. "Come on, Jeb wants to see us." Dodging 2 sutlers' wagons loaded with supplies for sale and a row of tents that sprung up sometime during the night, Mike ran around to the edge of the parade ground to join Todd. Todd had a shock of thick blonde hair and gangly arms and legs. His arms constantly thrust out of sleeves, and his pant legs were always too short, no matter how often his mother let out the hems. Todd had become Mike's best friend at the fort. It was Todd who 2 weeks earlier had introduced Mike to Jebediah, the elderly soldier who knew all the drum calls. Gap-toothed Jebediah, whose limp testified to the 2 shots he'd taken in the Indian Wars, had led the boys to a tack room at one end of the stables, which were pungent with the acrid odors of hay and sweat of horses. There Mike and Todd sat on a bale of hay as Jebediah carefully took a large package from the shelf and slowly unwrapped its cloth covering to expose a drum. Belonged to lad of 19 who went down with an arrow in his back, Jebediah had said. Snatched up his drum, kept the beat going. Stuck with my captain, followed his orders to be advanced for the men. We won that battle. I got praise for my actions by the captain. Even though our company later got a new drummer with his own drum, I hung on to this one, because I knew it would come to good use someday. It's about time for it to go back into service. The drum sounds the orders to the men to advance or retreat. Company's handicapped if it hasn't got a drummer. He motioned to Todd to stand and hung the drum strap around Todd's neck, adjusting the strap so that he had a large drum hung just above Todd's knees. Painted on the side of the drum was a faded eagle with wings outstretched and a Union flag that waved in an imaginary breeze. Jebediah had produced 2 drumsticks and suddenly magically beat out a rat-tat-tat that made Mike's heart jump. Here, he said, thrusting the sticks into Mike's hands. You try it. Hold it like this. No, that way. Todd was quicker, but soon Mike got the feel of the drumsticks and picked up the rhythms. And ever since that day, the 2 boys had practiced the drum beats whenever Jebediah gave them permission. Now, as Mike and Todd ran to the stables, Jeb met them. You boys have been practicing the calls for a good long while, he told them. Now, suppose you show me what you can do. In the tack room, Todd performed first, and then it was Mike's turn. He went through the 10 calls from reveille and a sharp, rapid beat to wake up the soldiers to taps. It was solemn, slow drumming that meant lights out and bedtime. Jeb had said taps would be a new call this war. Try not to think too much about the fact that taps was also drummed at funerals. Mike beat out the call, making only one mistake, well, maybe 2 or 3. But instead of praising the boys, Jeb grimaced, showing his mouth more gaps than teeth. Good thing you got years of practice ahead of you before you're old enough to join up, he told Mike. Those beats got to come out smart and sharp enough to inspire the men. You think you can lead men into battle with thud, thud, thud? Mike felt himself blush. I guess I was concentrated too hard on the beat itself. I'll give it another try, he said. Maybe by the time you're 16, this war will be over, Jeb said slyly, and the army won't have much need of drummers. Mike thought of Sergeant Duncan, who had laughed at his age and his size. I might be short for nearly 13, but I'm growing fast, he said. Won't be long before I can pass at least a year older. I'm 2 years older than Mike and tall for my age, Todd said. Anyone would take me to 16. Besides, I've got my own bugle, and I know the bugle calls. I've been thinking of joining up. So you've been saying, Jeb glanced at Todd with the corners of his eyes. I've been hearing. And some of the companies been putting together in such a hurry they don't got drummers or buglers, and they ain't fussy about ages. Boy close to the age to enlist, showing up at the right place at the right time with a fine drum like this one or a shiny bugle, just might make himself part of the Union Army. Where's the right place? Todd asked. Down south a ways, Fort Scott, less than 90 miles or so. They're mobilizing a lot of foot soldiers, sending them out nearly as fast as they show up to enlist. 90 miles? That's a long walk, Mike blurted out. Jeb's lips turned down in a sneer. No use joining the army if you're afraid of a little walking. Fighting never lasts long at a time. It's the walking what soldiers do most of, he chuckled. Don't know if you can make it in just 3 days' time, but 2nd Kansas Infantry under Colonel Mitchell will be leaving Kansas City, head to southern Missouri. Kansas City isn't far, Mike exclaimed. Jeb struggled to his feet. You can stay here and practice. I got to go tend the horses. Just before he reached the doorway, he turned to face Todd. I was just a scrap of a youngster when I signed on for my country to need me, he said. I know just how you feel. Hurt by being ignored by Jeb, Mike went to Jeb out of earshot and said, the Union Army needs both of us. Maybe not right now, Todd said. You've talked about joining. I know, and someday I will, but before my father left Virginia, he told me the best thing I could do is work hard, study, and take care of my mother and sisters. Mike said, Captain Taylor told me nearly the same thing, but we're not children. We could help the Union win the war. You're serious, aren't you? Yes, I'm serious. Todd frowned as he thought, there's not much I can do to take care of my mother. If you've noticed, the women seem to take care of each other. Mike nodded, and because of the orderlies' help, we don't have many chores. There's not much we're needed for around here. You might even say we're in the way. Mike looked at the drum and then at Todd. Captain Taylor didn't exactly forbid me from joining up. At least he didn't put in those words. What about your father? Todd scrunched up his forehead as if he were trying hard to remember. When I said I was old enough to join the army, my father told me he hoped the war would be over before I had the chance to make that decision. So he didn't say you can't become a drummer for the Union Army. No, Todd said he didn't. And excitement became shine on Todd's eyes. A slight twinge of guilt that had been pestering Mike dissolved. I've heard the Rebs are tough fighters, Todd said. The Army needs all the help they can get. Mike grinned. Sergeant Duncan and them came under fire of those Union volunteers to get scared and run. I never run. Me neither. The Army badly needs drummers and buglers. Jeb said so. We know how to beat the calls. It's a real waste if we don't do anything with what we know. It's not only a waste, it's like working against the Union if we weren't needed and don't go. Mike's heart thumped rapidly and his voice dropped to a whisper. Then what do you say we make our way down to the 2nd Kansas Infantry in Kansas City and see what they can use us? Todd's words came out in a hoarse growl. You mean run away? Yes, Mike said. Run away.